Good morning to all. Today we are going to continue our session, American Literature. I want you to study American literature. Let us continue with our continuation from lecture 1. American Literature. Unit 1, Poetry. The Raven, Edgar Allan Poe. Author Introduction. Life. Edgar Allan Poe was born on 19 January 1809, Boston, US. His pseudonym is Otis. He belonged to Victorian age. His parents were David Poe, Elizabeth Arnold Poe, who were traveling actors. He was adopted by John Allan, is a tobacco merchant. He studied in Thomas Jefferson University. He married Virginia Clum. He worked as artillery sergeant major. He was died on 7th October 1849, Baltimore, United States. His career. Edgar Allan Poe was poet, editor and literary critic. He wrote tales of mystery and macabre. He was the inventor of the detective fiction. He also called pioneer of the modern detective story and father of the detective story. He was the father of the modern French symbolist poet. He was first American literary critic. He belongs to American Romantic movement. He contributed to the magazines Southern Literary Messenger by Richmond, Gentleman's Magazine by Burton, Graham's Magazine. He owned a journal, The Pen, renamed The Stylus. He worked in Evening Mirror, Broadway Journal. He contributed to the American Review, a Whig journal, and Goddess Lady's Book. His theme in Death of a Beautiful Woman. He wrote Gothic genre. He interested in physics, cosmology, cryptography. He wrote science fiction. He called as father of mystery plays. Edgar Award is awarded for the distinguished work in the mystery genre. Tamerlane and Other Poems, 1827, published under the name by a Bostonian. Author introduction. His works, famous works. Let us see poetry. Al-Araf, 1829. It is based on Quran. Annabel Lee, about death of a beautiful woman. The Bells. The City in the Sea. The Conqueror Worm. A Dream Within a Dream. El Dorado. Elodia. The Haunted Palace. To Helen. Tamerlane. Lenore. Ulalum. The Raven, 1845. The Balloon Hawks, 1844. Famous Tales. The Black Cat. The Fall of House Usher, 1839. It is Gothic tragedy. The Goldbug. The Mark of the Red Death. The Benechur Burial. The Purloined Letter. It is detective fiction. The Murders in the Rue Morgue. It is detective fiction. The Mystery of Mary Roget. It is a sequel to The Murders in the Rue Morgue, A Descent into the Maelstrom. It is science fiction. The Telltale Heart, 1843. It is a horror story. Tales of the Grotesque and Arabesque, 1840. It is a collection of horror stories. His best essays. The Philosophy of Composition, 1846. And three central elements are length, method, unity of effect. Eureka, a prose poem, 1848. It is an essay on the nature of the universe. Here we are going to study about the Raven. It comprises in the Philosophy of composition. The Poetic Principle, 1848. It is an essay on literary theory. Others. Politician, 1835. It is only play of Poe. The Narrative of Arthur. Gordon of Nantucket. It is only complete, 1838. Novel of Poe. The Lighthouse, 1849. This is his last incomplete novel, a manuscript found in a bottle. This work dealt the adventure story, short story. The facts in the case of M. Valdemar, 1845. Morbid metaphysical speculation. The Raven was published in the American Review, a Whig journal, under the pseudonym Qualis. Griswold wrote a memoir of Edgar Allan Poe on the day of his death under the pseudonym Ludwig. His quotes. Poe called imaginative world as eternity. Poe is a jungle man, told by Emerson. With we poetry has not a purpose but a passion, told by Poe. Beauty its own excuse for being. Poe. Poe is always and for a lance a great lyric poet, told by W.B. Yeats. Lord help my poor soul. Poe's final word. The sources where he has taken the Raven. The Raven is a narrative poem by Edgar Allan Poe, first published in January 1845. The poem is often noted for its musicality, styles, language, and supernatural atmosphere. It tells of a talking raven's mysterious visit to a distraught lover, tracing the man's slow fall into madness. The lover, often identified as being a student, is lamenting the loss of his love, Leno. Sitting on a bust of Pallas, the raven seems to further instigate his distress with its constant repetition of the word nevermore. The poem makes use of a number of folk, mythological, religious, and classical references. Poe claimed to have written the poem very logically and methodologically, intending to create a poem that would appeal to both critical and popular taste. As he explained in his 1846 follow up essay, The Philosophy of Composition, the poem was inspired in part by a talking raven in the novel Burnbay Rudge by Charles Dickens. Poe borrows the complex rhythm and meter of Elizabeth Barrett's poem, Lady Gerald's Courtship, and makes use of internal rhyme as well as alliteration throughout. The Raven was first attributed to Poe in print in the New York Evening Mirror on January 29, 1845. Its publication made Poe widely popular in his lifetime, although it did not bring him much financial success. The poem was soon reprinted, parodied, and illustrated. Critical opinion is divided as to the poem's literary status, but it, nevertheless, remains one of the most famous poems ever written. The Raven. Let us read the poem lyrics. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of some one gently rapping at my chamber door. It is some visitor, I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Ha! Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forever, and the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, it's some visitor entreating entrance of my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Thus it is, and nothing more. Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. Sir, I said, Sir, said I, ah, madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came, tapping, tapping at my chamber door, and I scarce was sure I heard you. Yeah, I opened wide the door. Darkness there and nothing more. Deep into the darkness peering long, I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortals ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token. And the only word they spoken was the whispered word, Leno. This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, Leno. Merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely, that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what threat is, and this my mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. It's a wind and nothing more. Open here, I flung the shutter, when with many a flit and flutter in their step, stately raven of the saintly days of yore, not the least options made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with men of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more. Then this ebony bird, beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly show. Tell me what thy lord name is on the night's Plutonian show, quoth the raven nevermore. Much I marvel this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as nevermore. But the raven sitting lowly on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul is in that one word. He did outpour nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered. Other friends have flown before on the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store? caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed faster, till his songs one burdened bow, till the ditches of his hope, that melancholy burdened bow of never, never more. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking, what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. Thus I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head as ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated over, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating over, she shall press her never move. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from the unseen censer, swung by Scramping, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor, tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee. By these angels he hath sent thee respite, and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore, quaff, oh, cough, this kind naphtine, and forget this lost Lenore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, think of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent, or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore, desolate, yet all unhaunted on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted. Tell me truly, I implore, this there is balm in Gilead. Tell me, I implore, quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, think of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore, quoth the raven, nevermore. But that word or sign in parting, bird or friend, bird or friend, I shrieked, upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian show. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon that is dreaming, and the lamplight over him streaming through his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. The poem come to an end. The lyrics of the poem. Now let us see the small Alan poem animation picture. Here we go.
Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this, and nothing more." Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, for vainly had I sought to borrow for my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here forevermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before, so that now, to still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is, and nothing more." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is, I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you." Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, and an echo murmured back the word, "Lenore." Merely this, and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely that is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven, of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady, perched above my chamber door. Perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. Perched, and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird, and bust, and door. Then upon the velvet sinking I betook myself to linking fancy unto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking "Nevermore." Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from an unseen censer swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. "Wretch," I cried, "by God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent thee, respite and nepenthe from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget this lost Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," said I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore, tell this soul, with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aidenn it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels name Lenore, clasp a rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Be that word our sign of parting, bird or fiend," I shrieked upstarting, "get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of that lie thy soul hath spoken, Leave my loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul, from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor, shall be lifted nevermore.
I think that you all have enjoyed this, isn't it? Me too. I too enjoyed this animation poem. So, before going to see in next session, I want you all to study this American literature, the poem The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. So, today's session is over. Let me meet you in next session. Until then, see you. Stay home, stay safe. See you.